8:45. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Here is the news edited by Dhanushka Madhavala and read by Indrani Senanayaka. The headlines. Funeral honours for Queen's lifelong sense of duty as she bids farewell. The Foreign Minister will deliver the Sri Lanka statement at the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly next Saturday. The Minister of Agriculture expresses hope that they will be able to recommence paddy purchasing from next Thursday. United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization in Sri Lanka will provide concessions to farmers during the Maha season. Minister Mahinda Amaraweera says that Sri Lankan rice is the best rice in Asia for the Sri Lankan consumers. In foreign news, 9 billion people told to evacuate as super typhoon hits Japan. Local news. Queen Elizabeth's coffin is on its final journey to Windsor Castle with huge crowds lining the route. It is being driven in the state hearse up the long walk after an elaborate and sombre procession through London. Involving 3,000 military personnel, it passed many of the capital's most famous landmarks. Earlier, a funeral service was held at Westminster Abbey, the building in which the Queen was married and crowned. During his sermon, the Archbishop of Canterbury said, "The late Queen touched a multitude of lives during her 70-year reign. Hundreds of dignitaries were there, including the Queen's former Prime Ministers, as well as US President Biden and French President Macron." The Queen's lifelong sense of duty has been remembered in her state funeral service at Westminster Abbey. The Dean of Westminster, who led the service, expressed gratitude to a congregation of 2,000 people, including world leaders and royalty. King Charles III led a sombre procession behind his mother's coffin from Westminster Hall to the Abbey. The Queen's coffin is now being driven to Windsor, where she will be buried with her husband of more than 70 years. Once the procession arrives at the Windsor Castle, there will be a smaller committal ceremony before a private service for the family later in the evening. As the Abbey service came towards its end, the last post was played by the same musicians who performed it at the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral, before the nation came to a standstill for 2 minutes silence. A piper then played a traditional lament before the King stood silently as the national anthem was sung. Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Sabri will deliver the Sri Lankan statement at the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly next Saturday in New York. During the visit, he will address several ministerial-level meetings, such as the meeting of foreign ministers of the Conference of Interaction and Conference Building Measures in Asia, the meeting of ministers of foreign affairs of the member states of the Group of 77 and China, the ministerial meeting of the Group of Friends of the Global Development Initiative, and the NAM Foreign Ministers meeting. He will also have bilateral discussions with the foreign ministers of the UN member states. In addition, he will also meet with the highest level of UN officials in New York. The Minister of Agriculture expresses hope that they will be able to recommence paddy purchasing from next Thursday. The ministry has ordered the state banks to release funds required to purchase paddy. Paddy purchasing has been temporarily halted due to the non-implementation of this order. The Director Board at the Bank of Ceylon is scheduled to meet next Thursday to discuss matters regarding the release of funds for the paddy purchasing. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. We continue with local news. United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization in Sri Lanka will provide concessions to farmers during the Maha season. In the 2022-23 Maha season, the UN FAO signed a memorandum of understanding with the Agriculture Minister regarding the provision of essential fertilizers for paddy cultivation. The signing of the agreement was presided over under the patronage of Agriculture, Wildlife and Forest Resources Conservation Minister Mahinda Amaraveera, Ministry Secretary Rohan Pushpakumara and Vimalendra Sharan signed for the UNFAO. The UNFAO has agreed to provide essential urea fertilizers and triple super phosphate fertilizers to the farmers of Sri Lanka. Urea fertilizer and triple super phosphate worth $55 million will be provided in this regard. Over 375,000 farmers will get a free 50-kilogram bag of urea fertilizer for a farmer to grow paddy. Free TSP will also be provided to all paddy farmers. They will provide triple superior fertilizers for the Maha season and the next Yala season. Minister Mahinda Amaraveera says that Sri Lankan rice is the best rice in Asia for the Sri Lankan consumers. The minister said as the country received a bountiful harvest this season, there are enough paddy stocks in the country to last until December. Due to that, there's no need to import rice to the country. The minister went on to say that the government is taking every possible measure to protect the farmer community in the country. That ends the local segment of news.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Sergeant at Arms Narendra Fernando said the restrictions imposed on the public to visit the Parliament have been relaxed from tomorrow and the public gallery of Parliament will be open to the public from tomorrow. The Committee on Parliamentary Business, which met last week, has decided to approve the proposal made by the Sergeant-at-Arms to relax the restrictions currently enforced in connection with the entry to the parliamentary complex and to the galleries due to COVID and security reasons. A preliminary step, it was agreed to allow parties who request to visit the Parliament, including school children, on days when there are no parliamentary sittings, the Parliament Communication Department said. Accordingly, with effect from tomorrow, school children will be allowed to visit the parliamentary complex on non-sitting days from 9:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. The school authorities can submit their applications for visits to the Sergeant-at-Arms by sending a letter, a fax, or by applying online through the Parliament website. The Sergeant-at-Arms states student groups of universities, higher education institutes registered under the government and foreign tourists too could be availed of this facility.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
We now take a look at Watchlight. The Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka has approved power cuts for 1 hour and 20 minutes for the next 2 days. PUCSL Chairman Janaka Ratnayaka said that the power cuts will be enforced between 6 and 10 p.m. tomorrow and the day after. Thereby, power cuts for 1 hour and 20 minutes will be enforced for groups A to L, P to V and W during this period. That was Watchlight. World News headlines. 9 million people told to evacuate as super typhoon hits Japan. Biden again says US would defend Taiwan if China attacks. US hostage swapped for Afghan leader linked to Taliban. Nine million people have been told to evacuate their homes in Japan as it is battered by one of the worst typhoons the country has ever seen. The super typhoon Nanmadol has killed 2 people and injured about 90. It hit Japan's most southerly island, Kyushu, last morning and is forecast to pass over the main island of Honshu in the next few days. Tens of thousands of people spent Sunday night in emergency shelters and almost 350,000 homes are without power. Transport and business has been disrupted and the country is braced for extensive flooding and landslides. Nanmadol has brought gusts of up to 234 kilometers per hour and some areas were forecast 400 millimeters of rain in 24 hours. Bullet train services, ferries and hundreds of flights have been cancelled. Many shops and other businesses have closed and sandbags have been put in place to protect some properties. US President Joe Biden has again said the US would defend Taiwan in the event of an attack by China. Asked in a CBS interview if US troops would defend the island, Mr. Biden said yes, if in fact there was an unprecedented attack. The remarks prompted the White House to clarify that the official US policy, which doesn't commit to military action on Taiwan, has not changed. Beijing said it deplores and firmly opposes Mr. Biden's pledge of action. The foreign minister said it had lodged stern representations with Washington over the remarks broadcast in a CBS 60 Minutes interview on Sunday. Taiwan is a self-ruled island off the coast of eastern China that Beijing claims as part of its territory. Washington has always walked a diplomatic tightrope over the issue. The Taliban has released a US engineer they had held hostage since 2020 in exchange for an Afghan tribal leader held in US custody since 2005. Mark Farage was handed over at the Kabul airport on Monday. The Taliban said. In return, they received Bashir Nurzai, a Taliban ally, serving a life sentence for drug trafficking. There was no immediate word from the US government or the family of Mr. Farage. Securing his freedom was an election pledge of President Joe Biden. To end this bulletin of world news, the headlines again. 9 million people told to evacuate as super typhoon hits Japan. Biden again says US would defend Taiwan if China attacks. US hostage swap for Afghan leader linked to Taliban. That ends this bulletin of world news. On to development news. Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena has urged the new ambassador of Saudi Arabia to assist Sri Lanka's efforts to face the economic and fuel crisis. Ambassador Khalid bin Mahmoud Nasir Al-Dassam Al-Khatani, who presented his credentials recently, called on the Prime Minister on Friday. The Prime Minister's office said during the meeting the Saudi ambassador had stated that his main task would be to increase job opportunities in his country for skilled Sri Lankan workers. The ambassador has said that within a short period of time, the number of Sri Lankan skilled and semi-skilled workforce in Saudi Arabia would be increased to 400,000 from the present 180,000.
Sports News is brought to you by...
With many values that bind us beyond the transaction, we are Sampath Bank. We present your future.
On to sports news. Former world number one Naomi Osaka says she has gone through more downs than ups this year. The 24-year-old from Japan has not won a title since last year's Australian Open, has been defeated in the first round of her past 3 tournaments. A 4-time Grand Slam winner, she has dropped to 48th in the rankings going into this week's Pan-Pacific Open. Osaka is defending her title at the Pan-Pacific Open in Tokyo, an event which returns after a 3-year absence following the coronavirus pandemic.
The fastest way to earn the highest interest from NSB, now extended till the 30th of September just for you. Your short-term deposits receive an attractive interest rate of 20% in 3 months and 22% in 7 months. Visit a bank branch or a main postal office today. NSB, the only bank with 100% government guarantee.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
German car-making giant Volkswagen has said it is aiming for a valuation of up to 75 billion euros for Porsche when the luxury brand is floated on the stock market. Trading in the shares is due to start in Frankfurt on the 29th of September. A prospectus will be published on Monday, after which investors can subscribe to Porsche shares. The share sale is said to be Germany's second largest ever initial public offering. That was Business News.
Business News, Sponsored by
The fastest way to earn the highest interest from NSB. Now extended till the 30th of September just for you. Your short-term deposits receive an attractive interest rate of 20% in 3 months and 22% in 7 months. Visit a bank branch or a main postal office today. NSB, the only bank with 100% government guarantee.
Economic News, courtesy of
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
eBay is removing sales listings for wristbands for the queue to see the Queen lying in state in London. Sellers were offering the paper-coloured bands, which mark mourners' place in the queue as memorabilia. The bands are marked as non-transferable and do not guarantee entry into Westminster Hall to file past the Queen's coffin. A spokesperson for the auction website said, "These items are against our policies and we are removing them." A few of the wristbands remained on the site under the header New Listing on Sunday morning, but did not link to an active auction or Buy It Now page. Some used wristbands were attracting bids of up to £70,000 before they were removed, The Guardian has reported. However, it is not known whether the bids were genuine.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
And finally, we take a look at the weather report. Several spells of showers will occur in the western and Sabaragamuwa provinces and in the Galle and Mathura districts. Showers or thundershowers will occur at a few places in the Uva and eastern provinces and in the Mullaitivu district during the evening or at night. To end tonight's news broadcast, we take a look at the headlines again. Funeral honours for Queen's lifelong sense of duty as she bids farewell. The Foreign Minister will deliver the Sri Lanka statement at the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly next Saturday. The Minister of Agriculture expresses hope that they will be able to recommence paddy purchasing from next Thursday. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization in Sri Lanka will provide concessions to farmers during the Maha season. Minister Mahinda Amarweera says that Sri Lankan rice is the best in Asia for the Sri Lankan consumers. And news from abroad, 9 million people told to evacuate as super typhoon hits Japan. That ends tonight's news broadcast.